Hi guys, it's the weekend, which means it's time for another edition of Technoholik, where we promise you nothing less than a power-packed show. And I'm not going to take you through the technology just by myself. With me is Sagar in the studio, and Varun is going to join us in a little bit. As we promised you a power-packed show, let's start by giving you a sneak peek. First things first, take a look at what's coming up on the show today. This week on Technoholik, the new phone, the iPhone 4 is coming to India, and plenty more in the news of the week. It doesn't get better than this. Projectors are now on cell phones. And finally, weekend picks are coming your way, which means it's time to splurge. But up first is our gadget of the week. Okay, so you've seen what's coming up on the show today, and this time our gadget pick of the week is the Canon EOS 60D. Now, Varun Singh, our resident shutterbug, is the one reviewing this camera. But before we actually get into the review, I'm sorry, we don't get dibs on this yet again.
I think, Radhika, this is your fault because you keep on calling him these names: Shutterbug, Android fan, the techno geek. So basically, we get left with nothing.
Varun is getting to have all the fun. We shall fix that on the show. But we hope that you have fun watching the next review. This is the review of the Canon EOS 60D. This might very well be the camera that you're waiting for.
Now, it's only been about 2 weeks since we showed you the Sony Alpha 33. Now, that may not have been a DSLR, but this, the Canon EOS 60D, is basically the old-fashioned DSLR, the way they're supposed to be when they're slightly above that low-end category which Canon is most popularly known for, the EOS 1000D, the 550D, and all of those. This is slightly higher end than that. Let's take a look at the specs before we talk a bit more about that.
Canon EOS 60D is a mid-level DSLR and is a successor to the EOS 50D. The DSLR features an 18-megapixel CMOS sensor and has an ISO range of 100 to 12,800. EOS 60D is also loaded with a 9-point cross-type autofocus system, along with Canon 63 zones. The DSLR is capable of doing 1080p full HD video capture with manual controls. At the back, it features a 3-inch vari-angle LCD screen and supports SD, SDHC, SDXD cards. Canon EOS D60 comes at a price tag of 80,000 rupees.
This lens especially is something that I like a lot because it's an 18 to 135 lens. So that's a very wide range of zoom that you have available to you. And the brilliant part about that is that this is a default lens, and it's actually a lens which is really good all the way up to 18 megapixels and beyond, which is the sensor resolution of this camera. So it's a very flexible lens which is part of the kit, and that's something really awesome. Another thing that's very cool about this camera is the fact that it also does video, and it does it all the way up to 1080p, 24 frames per second, 30 frames per second, whichever way you prefer it, it does it. And it's also got an external mic slot in here, so you can actually plug an external mic in and get professional quality audio right into the camera. And the brilliant part is that with these kind of lenses, you can get that depth of field effect that you need, and the video quality is really amazing as long as your subject is very well lit up. But as far as image quality is concerned, this is right up there. Why would I not want to recommend this camera at this point in time? First of all, this is quite an expensive camera. It's selling at about 80,000 bucks. You may find it discounted somewhere for about 75 grand as well. But the awesome part about this is that, sure, this is a mid-range camera and slightly above the standard DSLR part. It's got a very awesome autofocus system, but there's this one little caveat, which is actually quite a bad caveat, because this was supposed to be something which was slightly above the last generation Canon T2i, which is pretty much the same sensor but lower video quality and everything else, because the processor that runs inside it is lower in terms of power. Now Canon's come out with a new camera, that's the T3i. It's not been launched in India yet, it has been launched in the US, but when it finally comes to India, it should be about 15,000 rupees cheaper than this, and it should also come with the same lens kit as well. So that's the reason why I really don't want to recommend this camera today. My recommendation, just wait for the T3i.
Okay, so Varun has a no-go on this camera. The Canon EOS 60D, according to him, is too expensive at 80,000 rupees. Now, Sagar, if you're looking for something which has so many features, aren't you expected to pay that price?
Yes, well, you are expected to pay that price. Now, this is a high-end camera. Now, this is not obviously a pure professional camera, but it's for a prosumer. It's not for an amateur photographer. So obviously you will end up paying in that region. Obviously not taking away from Varun's review, because I do buy his points with the fact that the processor is slightly slower and you need to go in for a slightly faster processor on this camera. So this is not really high tech. The features this is offering, Canon is a great brand. Like personally,
it's more about brand loyalty, staying with Canon, because the amount of lenses that you get.
Exactly.
It's about staying in the family.
You hit it on the head. See, it's not about brand loyalty because of just being loyal to a brand. It's about having an ecosystem. And I think the two cameras which are really ahead in this ecosystem, one is obviously Canon and the other one is obviously Nikon. According to me, if you have the money and if you want to buy a high performance camera, I think this is the one. I mean, you know, when I held the camera, I felt like a professional photographer. I had the sudden air and I was walking around saying that, hey, I know how to shoot this. I liked it, but obviously Varun's review says that don't buy it right now because it's too expensive.
Wait for the T3i instead is what he says.
But personally, well, if you have the money, if you have 80 grand, it doesn't pinch your pocket, go splurge.
Okay, so the Canon EOS 60D is getting some mixed reviews. Nobody is doubting the fact that it's a good camera. It's the price that we're a little worried about. It's 80,000 bucks, which means it's too expensive. Wait for the prices to come down. It's a good camera nonetheless. I personally think I like the camera. I don't know much about DSLRs, but if I had 80,000 bucks, I would go with Sagar and buy this camera too. That about brings us to the end of this segment, but stay tuned for the next one, because up next is news of the week and some really nice projector phones. Come back to Technoholik.